What? I decided today, let's cover something a little bit different. And I kind of wish I hadn't, because it's fucked up my recommendations and all of that. Generally, I watch like Mr. Samuel Streamer's RimWorld series and, things like that. But now it's manga, 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 manga. Manga, 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 manga. So I have fucked up my recommendations by clicking on that. So yeah, I watched like two of these just to see what they were about. Because generally, when I talk to Macho and all of that, he usually talks about reading manga and things like that. And I seen this pop up, and I'm like, what's so good about manga? So I looked at it. It's pretty good. I mean, this particular one is acted out and read, well, not acted out, but it's read by other people and it's edited together to make things, flow together. Like you start from one scene, go to the next scene, and all of that's wrote out. The females act or voiced over or voice acted, I guess, as you could say, by a female. The male's voice acted by a male. And there's no looking at it, from like right to left or having to figure out which scene's next. It makes it all clean and all of that. It's essentially just a regular anime. But what I want to get into today, and if you watch this through, story starts out of these two. She comes in, they are childhood friends. She fixes his tie and all of that. They've been doing this for years, a long time. They get very flirty and very lovey dovey and whatnot. His buddy says, hey, you guys have been flirting and all of that. You obviously like each other. Why don't you tell her how you feel? And confess. Confessing is basically confessing your love and asking the person to begin a relationship with you. He takes the advice of his friend, asks her for a relationship, and she rejects him. Rather harshly. There you go. I've loved you since we were little kids. I don't want to be your childhood friend anymore. I want to be your boyfriend. She replies back for no response. And then she says, are you an idiot? Who do you think you are that you think you could go out with me? Don't get so cocky. And she just flat out rejects him. The next day, she ignores him because, she's doing her own shit, whatever. And another chick approaches him. Da 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 da. Another chick who's apparently the prettiest girl in class, the cream of the crop, approaches him and says that she likes him and all of that. He says, I don't even really know you, etc., etc., to her. And she's like, I like this and that and another about you. I know it's really sudden. I like you. Please go out with me. The cutest girl in my class just told me she likes you. One, calling her the cutest girl in class dictates that he obviously knew who she was and he obviously had some sort of affinity towards her. Because you wouldn't call just anything the cutest girl in your class. If he actually liked the other chick, 100%, and that was his childhood friend, his eyes would be on her and she would be the prettiest girl in the class, unless, this chick is just, fire. And trust me, you're not going to find a chick that's just absolutely positively fire when you've grown up with a childhood friend and, you've been around a female all of your life. You generally tend to look at females differently than if you're like a male that's hardly around females. You have two different outlooks. She asks him out. He says no. He says, most of the things that you're saying about me that you like is kind of things about my appearance. And, he's getting kind of shy and kind of standoffish. She says, we don't have to date. Let's just go, or let's become a couple on a trial. And at the end of a trial period, you can say whether or not you want to be in a relationship with me. Right after school on the first day, she takes him back to her place and cooks the motherfucker a pie. The next day, the first chick that he was talking to, the pinkish, reddish, whatever hell color chick that's supposed to be, questions him the morning after, saying, where did you go yesterday after school? He lies to her and says that he went shopping. And then she calls him out on his lie and bullshit, saying, I hope you enjoyed your time at her house. Because she probably followed them, or somebody started a rumor, or somebody told her, hey, he went over to her house yesterday. So she gets mad because, well, she rejected her, or she rejected him yesterday, mere hours before. And then he literally turned around, became somebody else's trial, boyfriend, and then went to her house, ate her pie, and all of that. So for the next week or so, she waited on him to approach her and all of that, apologize and try to sort things and all of that. He never approached her. Instead, he started having lunch with the new chick, her, on the rooftop. She was cooking him meals and a whole bunch of other shit and supporting him and all of that. She's kind of a tsundere, so she's kind of obsessive over him. And she starts cooking him meals and trying to fix his broken heart and all of that. About a week later, she comes, redhead chick comes over and says that, they've been friends for a long time. When he just randomly one day shoots off and says that he liked her, she got shy, she got nervous, she freaked out, and ended up saying something that she regretted. Then, on top of that, she explains to him that the reason she didn't talk to him the next day was because she was trying to sort her feelings through. Then, that one day, period, where she was trying to sort everything through and all of that, he was already with another chick going to her house, eating all her, food and all of that, and getting meals made and shit. So she was kind of like, what the fuck in that situation? So she ignored him and gave him time to, do whatever the fuck he wanted to do and gave him time to apologize. After about a week went through, he approached both of them sitting on a bench, and she was like, as you can see, she was feeding him and all of that other type of, romance bullshit. She approaches, says, you two seem very friendly. He says, what are you doing there? Etc., etc. And she's kind of pissed, and she openly approaches him, and she's like, if you're not going to come apologize to me and try to make things better, then I'm going to come to you. Main character then states that, well, she comes up as the one that wants to be her boyfriend and all of that, the one on the right, childhood friend, other chick. Other chick then steps up and says that you don't deserve to be like him. You rejected him wholeheartedly and then you ignored him for a week. He ends up agreeing with her. They end up getting into a relationship, and the childhood friend says that he's no longer in love with her. Then he goes even further to say that, well, after kissing her in front of the childhood friend and all of that, making her run away in tears and all of that, then he has the nerve to say, maybe if she'd have been more honest from the beginning, things might have turned out differently. And then even though she's like that, she's my childhood friend, I will help her when she's in trouble as long as she doesn't trouble him and his new girlfriend, being the reddish pink haired girl. And I go down and I look at the comments of people saying Emiri flat ignored Subaru after he confessed to her and rejected him. Her attitude pushed him away under the arms of somebody who wasn't afraid to pick him up in his broken heart. She's sweet and is amazing, and she was willing to let him go if he wanted to be with a childhood friend instead. And you see all of these lovesick people that literally are all single, most of them probably virgins and all of that. Best ending I've ever seen, you know. Finally, we're the ones that get the win, and we're not getting left for another person. Like, you can see all the lovesick responses and all of that, where people are happy. Super, super happy. And all of this. Well, most animes, the childhood friend never wins anyway, so it's normal in a regular anime to have the childhood friend miss out and the main character, or MC, go with the other chick. That's the normal. In anime, generally the childhood friend wins and, things like that. So it's basically the opposite of the anime trope. Anime, childhood friend always loses. Manga, childhood friend always wins, at least in rom-coms and things like that. I don't know if it's like a romantic comedy because I didn't see anything comic. I guess it's a romantic comic. I don't know. I don't know what rom com stands for. I know the rom is romantic though. And I'm called a contrarian because I don't agree with anything in this particular story. If you want further details and a further opinion, so you're not, influenced by my biased opinion or anything like that, and you can get your own, the title's right there. You just type that in and boom, done. This was June 29th, 2022. I mean, Canon's rom-com manga, you can go straight to the channel if you want, and it's literally yesterday. So, we get to that, and the only thing that I see, and I guess this is from, being educated in the psychological field and things like that, is if nobody would have opened their mouths, nobody would have said anything, nobody would have peer pressured anybody or anything like that, both of them two would have came to school every day and continued doing what they were doing until either one of them confessed to each other or they would have graduated school, gone their separate ways and all of that, and he would have naturally found the other chick, or he would have went off to college and found another chick there. Or, like I said, they would have ended up together. So, when you come to situations like that, there's always a spark or a fire or something that ignites situations, which causes drama and a whole bunch of other things to unfold. Drama in itself isn't a bad term. There's good drama, there's bad drama. Drama in itself isn't bad. People use it in a negative connotation, in a negative tone. They say, oh, here comes the drama. And they use it negative. Like a lot of things that can mean a positive things, people use it in a negative tone nowadays. But it's not a negative thing unless you make it negative. But the best friend, who I'm going to call, I don't know, I guess he was just a classmate that he talked to all the time. I don't know if it specifically says best friend, but somebody he hung out with, his buddy, peer pressured him into making a confession. This is the number one thing that ruins and makes significant changes in people's lives for better or for worse. It will completely ruin you if you listen to what somebody else says. You guys have been going to school together for years. Second year of high school, she's your childhood friend. You've been together for years. Guy says that, hey, you two obviously love each other. You should ask her out. And he pressured and he peer pressured and peer pressured and peer pressured. He was like, I don't know, man. And he's like, no, I'm 100% sure that, she's going to accept your confession and all of that. And pushed him to do it. Why, in any God given time, would you ever go from your regular relationship that you've had for years to just randomly off the top of your fucking head confess your love to somebody you've been with for a long time like that? You're going to confuse the hell out of them and you're going to put them through a lot of shock and a lot of trauma. Trauma, again, doesn't mean people take trauma as something that's, huge. You hit your head, you lose your mind, you have amnesia, or it's just this gut-rending experience that affects you the rest of your life. No, there's different levels of trauma. There's minor trauma, and then there's the heavy trauma. Everybody uses the heavier, more emotionally sound, versions of things to get a, elicit emotional response from somebody. Trauma can be very minor. If you fall down and scrape your knee, that's trauma. It's not something bad as if, a parent or something like that died, but it's still trauma, just scraping your knee. That's a form of trauma. But yeah, if you go from a normal day thing and then force somebody into a situation they weren't expecting, they're going to freak out and you're going to get a weird response, depending on how their defensive mechanisms are. You've been with her for years. If some sort of weird change happens and she immediately reacts to something in a negative way, you should have been able to pick up on this, my dude. Two, who the fuck randomly goes again, like you were doing every day for the last, 10, 12, 14 years, whatever, and then normally one day or randomly one day invite somebody to a park to go for a walk and then confess? Build up to that. Your friend gave you the advice to confess. Confess, 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 confess. Yes. Take his advice, and if you do like her and want to proceed things further, go ahead and confess, but do so on your own time. Don't fall to the immediate peer pressure to do something. Instead of being nicer to her, going out and hanging, inviting her out to a movie or a date or something like that, making her happy, buttering her up, going through, all the pizzazz and all of that to win her over and slowly work his way into it. He dove headfirst into the fucking creek and was like, I love you, be my girlfriend. Of course she's gonna react negatively to it and be like, what the fuck actually happened? We've been together for 14 years. Maybe she liked you and all of that, but you just ambushed her out of nowhere. She rejects you because you freaked her out and she wasn't ever expecting you to say anything. And she left. She got out of the situation. You then tried to approach her in the morning and walk to school from her. She still hadn't gotten all of her shit situated because, she's seen you again. Thinking about something and getting a plan in your head on what you want to do is different when you're in front of the person. You might have worked through most of the emotions, but seeing that person and knowing how they feel for you, and you've been with them 14 years, and if you say yes to this, your entire life is going to change. You go from being mere friends to lovers, and there's going to be expectations of being lovers and things like that. So you have to think about it. Are you willing to, throw away your friendship potentially to become lovers with this person, or is it better just to remain friends? On top of that, after she freaked out and rejected him and walked away, went home to actually give that a serious thought about what happened, he got approached by another girl. Agreed to this dumbass pseudo relationship shit, went to her house and had pie and did whatever the hell else, and ended up in a pseudo relationship with her. How the fuck are you supposed to feel when somebody that you've known for 14 years, that you've possibly liked, but you probably never, thought seriously and considered like a full fledged relationship, comes out of nowhere, says, hey, let's get into a relationship. You say something, you probably don't mean. They just caught you off guard. And then the next day, you figure out that they went with another chick immediately after asking you out. You're going to be pissed as fuck. And you're going to be like, what the fuck? I know this person for so long. I didn't expect them to be, such a fucking scumbag. They literally confessed that they love me after 14 years of being together. I rejected them. And then they're already at another chick's house. What actually the fuck just happened? Then you go to school the next morning, and you ask them about it. Hey, what were you doing yesterday? You know, to give them a chance to explain what the fuck's going on. And they straight up lie to you, right to your face. Well, I didn't do anything. I just went shopping. And then you call them out on their bullshit. And then they just stand there looking stupid and they have nothing to say to you, so you turn around and walk away from them. So now you're pissed, you're confused. You thought that they liked you, but apparently they like anybody. They're just looking for some. And you're fucking pissed. After that, she approaches him again. She cooks him lunch and she takes him up to the fucking all over the place, and she starts getting lovey dovey with him. And you're waiting to see what's going to happen. If you meant anything to that particular person, they would approach you and apologize. And you wait. Tries to approach you during the morning and all of that, but after, it's blatantly lying to you, you ignore him. You ignore him, you ignore him, you ignore him. You let him know that, hey, he hurt you, and human egos, you know. Shit happens. You let him try to know that he's wrong, and you try to hurt him as much as he hurt you there. He tries to approach you, tries to approach you, tries to approach you. You ignore everything that he has to say. Female's perspective. Male's perspective, he's trying to explain, baby, it was a mistake, this is all that, and, she's not wanting to hear it. Lunchtime comes around. And he goes up to the fucking roof with the other chick. And she's fully aware of that shit. So at this point, it's like he was trying to talk to me all throughout the day. And I was being a little harsh on him because he blatantly lied in the morning right before that day of school. He lied. You ignore him. She's playing hard to get, whatever. Lunchtime comes around, which is, midday. And he's back up on the roof or outside or wherever the fuck they were at, eating lunch with her again. Being all lovey-dovey, eating a handmade fucking lunch that she took time into, and he's eating that shit off her. She obviously seen that shit, because she just wanted to know how he was probably going to act. She seen that shit, and she was like, oh, hell no. So she stopped talking to him. 5 more days go by, she's waiting on him to, stop him or stop her in the morning, say anything, I'm sorry, can we at least talk, basically show some sort of remorse. Throughout the entirety of those 5 days, he is non-stop talking to her. He's talking to her in the morning, he's talking or eating lunch with her in the afternoon, they're texting and doing all kinds of shit, in the evening, texting, keeping in communications and shit. In the evening, she's eating his lunch, or he's eating her lunch every day. So about 5 days of that go by, and she's just like, what the fuck? She approaches them and she's like, the ending that I told you, you guys look like you're having fun and all of that. The other chick gets up, starts, shooting her mouth how she doesn't deserve him and a whole bunch of other shit. And he's like, well, you wholeheartedly rejected me and then stopped paying attention to me, so I got with another chick. And people are just like, yeah, she shouldn't have rejected him. She shouldn't have ignored him. The other chick's completely right in this situation. I'm like, it makes me fucking sick. This is a classic example of peer pressure making somebody do something to another human and potentially ruin the entire relationship that they have. If the friend would have shut the hell up, or if he would have just taken the time to butter up, he would have been with this childhood friend. The thing about these rom-coms and all of that is they just show how things get together. I mean, most of these have these bullshit ass endings wrote to them. There's two that I watched. It's like, oh yeah, we got married, we had this, and I'm at the top of my fucking level. I'm a CEO of a company, and I'm fucking, top shit. Like unrealistic ends. But this one never talks about the end. It just shows that him and the other chick, him and her, end up in a relationship at the end of everything. And then at the end, he gives this smug opinion that I showed that she's still my childhood friend and I'll help her if she's in trouble as long as she doesn't interfere with the two of us. Interfere with the two of you? What the fuck are you talking about? She's your childhood friend. You've probably known each other for 14 years. Every day, you've been walking to school together, eating lunch together, going home, going to different places. You live by each other. You're hanging out, and you've been doing this for, 10 plus years because she's childhood friend your second year in high school. So you've been doing this for years. You are close to this other chick, and you have the nerve to say something like that. She literally fixes your tie and your uniform in the morning when you come in all fucked up and shit. She's been keeping you on the right track. She's been taking care of you all these years when you've been nothing but a fucking sap. And some chick who you barely even know comes up and says she likes you after a disaster when you're vulnerable, and you just latch on to her and end up in a relationship with her because she's treating you nice. That is probably the biggest virgin shit that I ever heard in my fucking life. And if we're talking realistically, they're not gonna end up in a relationship for very long. And the relationship between him and his childhood friend may or may not be irreparable, depending on how she decides to handle the situation. She is completely obsessed with him, and you can tell by how she talks and how she describes, what she likes about him. She likes his smile, she likes his face, she likes his hair, she likes the way she communicates with people, the things that you can see from afar. She likes the things that she noticed while she was basically, I'm not going to say stalking, but watching him from a distance. She has no idea what this motherfucker's like personality wise and how he acts outside of school and all of that. She don't know. She's a stranger on the outside and she's approaching him. If he ends up being boring and dull and doesn't fit her expectations and she falls out of love with him and she walks away, he's gone. She has nothing to lose in this equation. She's gone. If the childhood friend doesn't come back and fill in the gap that she leaves, and the childhood friend's like, no, you fucked it up. We could have been something. You fucked it up. You got with some chick you didn't even know. They've been together for 14 years, probably. Probably even more if they were like real, real small childhood friends. And he threw all of that to the side after spending a week with a random chick that just approached him one day that said, I love you. He threw all of that shit away. Who do you think's better for you? You know her. You obviously had a crush with her. You've hung out with her. She's your childhood friend. You know her personality. You know her aspirations and things like that. And you threw all of that out for a chick that can cook a good apple pie and a good lunch. And she sat there and said all the shit that any guy would ever want to hear, you know. I'm there, I'll support you whenever, blah, blah, blah. You know, all the fucking butter up shit that, you would think guys would fucking like to hear. And I hear that shit. What's going on, Galanonim? Um, about half an hour or so, I'm actually going to be doing Dead by Daylight reviews. Well, it's not going to be well, I might do a couple of reviews. I'm going to cover the perk reworks and all of that stuff. That's what I have planned today. This is kind of just like a pseudo warm up. So, in about half an hour, if you want to go do something or etc., etc., I will be back on and doing that. As of now, I'm just going over this as sort of kind of like a pseudo warm up and just to kind of state my opinion on something. It's more like a Q1 off. So I guess I could just change this particular story. But this kind of goes into what I normally say, then I can make a dinner in that time. There you go. I got up and already ate, but I am still hungry because, well, I don't know. If I make a lot of food, I end up not eating it. And if I make a little bit of food, I end up getting hungry and being like, man, I should have made more. I got snacks though, so it's fine. But it's like, this is why people say, oh, Q, you're a realist, or Q, you're a contrarian, or you shouldn't think like that, you're a pessimist. You know, you'll never have a good time, or something like that. But it's like, things like this aren't realistic. You're telling me that this average Joe that managed to go all the way to his second year of high school and overseas, they only have 3 years of high school in Japan. They have 3 years of what would be high school in American terms. American has freshman, sophomore, junior, and senior. 4 years. Over there, they have 3 years. And they don't call it high school. I think they call it like secondary school or some shit like that. I don't remember what the fuck they call it. Honestly. So, where Americans, your freshman year, you can kind of fuck off and kind of get acquainted to things and then slowly start dialing it in. They're preparing for their future or going to work as soon as they get into high school. So they only got 3 years. If they fuck off their first year, they're fucked. First year, you know, you start, getting your career plan and all of that shit situated. You should think about what you're doing, where you're wanting to go, or what you want to become, the skills that you need. You should be focusing on your grades and shit like that, studying, getting them up, you know, and getting yourself acclimated to, the work life. Second year, they generally do the career planning and all of that heavily. What do you want to become? Okay. What college are you trying to get into? Okay. I'm going to work with you so you can try and get into, a specific college. And then your last year, it's go time. It is go time. All of your planning and all of that gets put into play. And then you try your best to consolidate all of that into a successful future. Because as soon as that third year goes, you're either going directly into the workforce and finding a job and working, or you're going to go to college and you're going to continue your education and think of, go farther into your future and whatever job you want to become. It's go time over there. So, saying that, they've known each other for that long, he's a second year at high school, which would be the equivalent of a third year in an American high school. So he's essentially a junior if you're an American, not a sophomore. Just to give you a perspective on where we're at in here. So they're damn near, done with school. They have their second year and then their third year. If they stayed how they were going right now, then maybe nothing would have happened. Maybe they went to college together, or maybe they both commute from their houses and they start a relationship. Maybe they don't start a relationship. Maybe they go off on different times. It's a misconnection. Or maybe he finally mans up. Who knows? But for him to throw away that many years worth of friendship to a chick that can cook a good apple pie in a lunch is just preposterous. One, it's not realistic, and two, dude shallow as fuck. Somebody that you care for and probably at this point should be seeing as, family, or somebody who's, an enhanced interest in all of that. To lose that many years worth of feelings after having one argument that lasts about a week. Preposterous. Get out of here. Ridiculous. Unrealistic. Absolutely can't stand the story here. And the fact that, well, what happens with rom-coms and things like that is people compare, and it's generally the lonely ass, again, virgins or people that don't have luck and romance and all of that, that just don't want to go out and push to that next step and actually do something along that, are the ones that watch these. And as they come down, they spin their own little imagination on top of this story. And they make it personal instead of just using it as a source of entertainment. And it just kills me because, again, the average opinion and the average everything else, because the average person is mediocre. And mediocrity will win out even if it's completely wrong. You can have 1,000 people telling you that 2 plus 3 equals 4. It doesn't mean 2 plus 3 equals 4. The one guy sitting in a corner that says 2 plus 2 is 4, not 2 plus 3 equals 4, can be the right one. But people go by ratios. They bandwagon on each other. It's 804 likes off of Amiri flat out ignored Subaru after he confessed to her and she rejected him. One, if somebody randomly confesses their feelings to you, just imagine somebody that, you hang out with all the time, whether it's male, female, whatever. You guys just hanging out, doing your thing that you've been doing for years. This is somebody that you haven't had any, type of sexual intercourse or any type of, high flirt game or anything like that. Just somebody that you've been with for a long amount of time. And then picture them one day saying, hey, dude, let's go hang out one day. And they pull you to the side and you're like, yo, dude, what's up? And then they're just like, I love you randomly. You're going to be like, what? What? And depending on your personality, you might just flat out reject them. You might say something stupid. You might try to make light of the situation. And what if they don't want it to be made light of? And they're serious as fuck and, there. And it ends up rubbing you the wrong way because you're like, what the fuck? And then a fight starts happening. You walk away and you ignore them the next time you see them because you're still trying to, process what you want to do with the situation. You don't want to talk to them at the moment. Ignored Subaru after he confessed to her and rejected him. Since this is one of the top comments that's at the top of the list. Flat out ignored him after he confessed to her and she rejected him. He confessed to her, yes, but it was out of the blue on a random day. There was no lead up, no nothing. 2, she ignored him after the fact that she found out that this dumb motherfucker went to a female's house and ate apple pie and a whole bunch of other shit, then blatantly lied about what he did that day. They're not even in a relationship. You didn't have enough trust to just look her in the eye and say that, one, it's either none of her business because, she rejected you and you're free to do what you want, or just to straight up say, yeah, so and so asked me to come over. I went to her house. She said she liked me. We had pie and all of that shit. You could have at least had the decency to give her an honest answer. Because if he would have been honest with her, who's to know that she would have said, I understand, or would have gave, any other type of answer besides just walking away and ignoring him. Lay it out on the table, dude. You either put her in her place saying that, hey, you're the one that rejected me. You have no right to question me about what I'm doing and who I'm doing things with. And set it straight. Or you can explain to her honestly what happened. She said this, and I agreed. Obviously, it's going to go into a secondary discussion on, why did you ask me out yesterday and then go to another chick the next day? Because he knows he's wrong and he realizes that he's wrong. That's why he was kind of speechless when she asked that and she walked away. He knows he was wrong. He knows he definitely should have turned her down and said, hey, give me a few days to sort, what I have going on with, what's going on now. Don't just ask a chick out and then when she says no, go to another chick. You'll have bad relationships with both of them. But again, this isn't very realistic. This is for people that are hurting and can't find girlfriends and are virgins and things like that and have those love fantasies that they can still make a comeback and win. It's not going to happen. Your first statement is flawed. Flat out ignored him after he confessed to her and she rejected him. It's funny how you, especially probably a guy, worded that. He confessed to her, she rejected him, but you also put the outcome first. He ignored her. Her attitude pushed him away into the arms of somebody who wasn't afraid to pick him up and mend his broken heart. This whole thing happened within the course of a fucking week. What do you mean you pushed him away and into somebody else's arms? They've had like 14 years of a fucking relationship built up that has crumbled and fell apart within a week. 1 week. It wasn't like, she spent a month being cold hearted or she spent, an elongated amount of time. This is 1 week. If my dude couldn't wait a week to get an honest answer to her or even approach her or anything like that, give her some space, let her work it out, then approach her one last time and be like, look. He's like, he never tried to make amends. He just kept walking up to her and approaching her. And she would panic and, still she said she would smile and all of that. But she would get kind of shy and, didn't know how to handle the situation and walk away. Your childhood friends. Why didn't you go over to her house after school instead of going to the other chick's house and see what's up? You know what I'm saying? She's ignoring you at school and all of that. You're her childhood friend. You've been probably going over her house for years. Talk to her. Message her and text her over the phone where it's easier for her to respond. Let her know what's up. Go to her fucking house. Do anything and know this is not a double standard before somebody tries to bring that shit out. He's the one that fucked up. He should be the one making amends. If she did the opposite thing, I would be on his side saying that she should be the one to explain what's going on. But him not saying anything to her and then just approaching her only at school when they're in the midst of everything. Why approach her at school? Why? Then, when she finally decided to wait for you outside of your place, you question her. What are you doing here? You fucking idiot? Are you stupid? You don't want to say, what are you doing here? You say, hey, finally I get to talk to you. And you welcome her back and let her know that shit's fine. As if it was the other way around. You would welcome the male in and let him know that shit's fucking fine and you guys can have a conversation. But you should have at least tried to go over her house or call her or text her, things like that. And if she doesn't reply back to any of those, give her some time to cool down and give yourself some time to cool down. Couple of days. Then approach her again. And if she's still being stubborn, then it's different. But same day getting rejected, going to female house, and then continuously hanging out with female who's obviously interested in you, and the other chick knows that she's interested with you. Don't look good, my dude. Don't look good at all. Her attitude pushed him away and into the arms of somebody who wasn't afraid to pick him up and mend his broken heart. She didn't pick him up. She took advantage of his vulnerability. And when he wasn't sure, she used her silver tongue to convince him. Oh, well, we ain't gonna be in a relationship. Let's just have like a pseudo relationship and you can give me an answer at the end. And we can make it official if things work. So let's date, but let's not put a title on it. So I'll give you an out. And that's generally what males do to females. Well, let's just act like we're dating, give that pseudo, but I'm going to give you an out to where if you're not comfortable, you can leave, whenever you want, or you can go back to the other person and I won't be mad, even though I'm going to be devastated and pissed. I'm going to give you an out. So you can walk away whenever, you want to. And at one point in time, he tells the redhead or the other chick, the new chick, that the black-haired chick, that he just can't really be in a relationship with her. He's still thinking of the redheaded chick. And she talks her way around to that and makes him basically stay. If she really was going to back down at any point in time and actually give him back to the redhead chick, at that moment in time, she would have backed off and let them, figure their shit out. She didn't. She kept pursuing him. She knew what she was doing. She knew what she wanted. She wanted to take care or take over his vulnerability. Those two come to school every day. They eat lunch together. They have fun. They're super close. She sees that they're no longer close because they're fighting. She jumped in there like a fucking tiger looking for fucking prey. And she hung on to him as hard as she could. And she basically used her presence as a deterrent for the childhood friends, knowing that she wouldn't approach. That's why she was super friendly in class and out loud saying that, as she was walking away, I made lunch, so let's meet somewhere and have lunch together. She openly declared that shit. This isn't a rom-com story of how two lovers came together. This is a psychological manipulation. The way she talked and all of that. This chick isn't a good girl. She's very obsessive and she's very manipulative. And she would have done anything in her power to get that man into a relationship. She almost gives me vibes on now that she has him. that she would push him into the bed and they would end up having a baby together just so that he couldn't leave her, not without, dire consequences. Like, that's the type of situation where this stems from. I got you, now I'm gonna keep you type situations. And that's how that's wrote. And I just find it funny how the general population can look past the deception, the manipulation, the taking advantage of somebody when they're vulnerable, taking advantage of a broken relationship and all of that, and having her cut in and drive the childhood friends apart. Then at the end, this dumbass saying this, even though she's like that, she's my childhood friend and I'll help her even when she's in trouble as long as she doesn't trouble us. AKA, she's the backup. As long as she has feelings and all of that, we can be friends and I'm going to keep her around as like a plan B. As long as she doesn't get involved with the main bitch, I'll keep her as a side bitch. It doesn't necessarily say that, but that's basically what he's implying. He's going to continue being her childhood friend, continue hanging out with her, even knowing that she's openly admitted to liking him and returning his feelings. He's going to keep in touch with her and all of that, as long as he doesn't trouble the main relationship. Guarantee you, if the main relationship don't work out, he's gonna say, "Hey, baby, let's go out again." You know? Yeah, let's go out again and all of this shit. And he's gonna try to woo her and all of that, and and that's if they don't last the entire year, because they have less than 2 years left. So even if you have that rom-com ending and all of that, and those two end up together, as soon as college comes, they might walk their separate ways. She's apparently the prettiest girl in school, and she's the legitimate, cream of the crop and all of that, and he's just average Joe. What if they go to different colleges? Or what if one goes to college and one goes into the workforce? What's going to happen to your relationship? What if at the end your plans just don't align and both of you break up? Other chick's childhood friend, she's going to be in touch with the parents and all of that. Parents are going to be in touch with you. Both of you can keep a long line of communication out. She comes home on vacations and all of that, or when she comes home regularly, if she doesn't commute from her home or move to another town or whatever, you two are still, well, could have still had relationships. This one's the one I'm talking about. Again, while giving him an out, she also gave herself an out. If she walks away, turns her back on him, and goes to another college or gets with another guy or something like that, she's gone. She has nothing tying her down. She is in the perfect situation. She's apparently the prettiest girl in school. She's got good looks, everything that she needs to find another partner. He's apparently just kind of average Joe MC. So he walks away, he's fucked. He's gonna be back sad, back vulnerable, and if he's lucky, another chick might say something to him. I doubt it. And if he's super lucky, the childhood friend might come back. But at that time, depending on when they break up, he might just be on his own, going through college and the rest of his, work life and all of that, basically single. So he finds somebody else. If he does find somebody else. Just not the brightest. And to have so many people, Lori or Eori, one of the two, I think it's Eori, which is her, is sweet and is amazing that she's even willing to let Subaru go if he wanted to be with his childhood friend instead. Yeah, she said that, but her actions dictates otherwise. And actually, she immediately contradicts herself. She said originally, if he wanted to go back to her, I would be fine, but no, I changed my mind. If I can find the fight scene. You're so selfish, Subaru. I love you. If you still want to date a person like her, I will back out. That's her second time stating that. And at the beginning of this whole argument, blah, 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 blah. And she flips back and forth, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth a lot. How selfish. Do you know how hard you hurt? Blah, blah, blah. You don't have the right to be his girlfriend. That's not even the beginning. This scene goes on for quite some time. Alright. Ba, 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 ba. Blah, blah, blah. Now, don't keep me wrong. She is selfish, but I mean, he did confess to her, and she was under the notion that he still liked her. She is selfish. Don't get me wrong there. Um, there we go. You ignore him all this time, and now you say that you love him. I would have supported you before, but now I can't give you Subaru. Even if you say so, Subaru hearts belong with me. She says that, and then he says, I'm sorry to say, but not anymore. In a week's worth of time, he's completely fallen in love, or falling out of love with her, which he's been in love with her since he was kids. And he confessed that since they were in like elementary school, he loved her. Since elementary school. And went over to her after a week. A week. It's been a week. Well, little kids. I guess little kids don't necessarily mean elementary school, but you know what I mean. I've loved you since we were little kids. I don't just want to be your childhood friend anymore. I want to be your boyfriend. Which means that they've known each other since they were little kids. Which is also where I got like the 14-year plus type thing. Ever since they were little kids, he's been following her around, and they've been childhood friends, and they've been, doing their thing for that long. And in all of 1 week, the first actual incident or, big fight that they had, he completely went to another girl and fell out of love with her that quick. Superficial and absolutely positively fucking fake. That's not realistic at all. Hmm. Subaru definitely deserves to be loved by Lori or Iori. He supported him all the way, even to the point that Emiri wants to take him back. Other girls would have immediately backed down if the man that they were in love with decides to go for the girl he loved at first, but that wasn't the case. He fought for her feelings and eventually won. Hmm. Probably the best ending I've ever seen. This is one of the best examples of why diversion of expectation makes a scene so memorable. Nice story. Finally end the not readers ending it with their imagination. He's very fucking, enthusiastic with his response. And it's just like, It's just a situation. Kids are gonna be kids. They're not mature enough to actually go in and sort out their actual feelings and all of that. We all know this. They're gonna make dumbass mistakes and things like that. So you can't be too harsh on the decisions and how the story ends up. However, the way this story ends up, he's been with her since they were little kids. He knows what her personality's like. And even dealing with her personality and how strict and all of that she can be all the time is something that he should be used to. You should know her personality for the most part. There's going to be pieces of her that she's never going to show you, as in with any other human, but you should know what her personality's like after 14 plus years. You should know her personality. You should know what she's like. And despite her personality being the way it is, you still elected to follow her, walk to school, home, hang out, and all of that, and fall in love with her. And to have all of that just pushed to the side because another chick pays attention to you for a week, that is the most virgin ass shit I think I've ever heard in my life. And it's sad.
Of
I'll actually come back to do this later on. Again, Mr. Samuel Streamer, he does very good RimWorld content. I've watched a lot of his series all the way up to the Dryad Queen. I've watched every RimWorld series, so that's thousands of episodes. Thousands. So what's going to happen now is I'm going to pop into Dead by Daylight reviews, do a couple of those, and then I'm going to go over the whole new rework they did on the perk system and all of that. So, stream's going to stop, and I'll be back in like a minute or so and restart another stream. Generally, I would be done streaming, but I seen this and I knew there was a calling that I couldn't pass up. So, I'll be back.